Good morning. Hardy New Englanders. Come out in all weather. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worthiness and dignity of every person, and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. My name is Reverend Kate Wilkinson, and I am so glad that you have joined us this morning. Welcome to those in the room, and welcome also to those of you joining us via our live stream. Before we begin our worship service, I have just a few announcements to share. A new version of our UUMH directory is now available. Yay! Many thanks to Kenneth and Stan and Ada for working on this. If you would like a printed copy, or if you would like an electronic copy emailed to you, please make a request to Kenneth in the office. We are no longer posting our directory online or sending it out to our whole folk list for cybersecurity reasons. So I hope you will not mind taking that little extra step as we keep your data safe. Next Sunday is Easter. That means we'll have our family-friendly Easter service, followed by, hopefully with better weather, an egg hunt out on our lawn. And it's a meeting house tradition to wear Easter bonnets on Easter. So all ages, all genders are invited to wear a fun hat. Bonus if you decorate it yourself. If you'd like to help the Easter Bunny prepare for our egg hunt, you can come by on Thursday at 2 o'clock to help fill the eggs, or at 10 a.m. next Sunday morning to help hide them. At coffee hour today, we hope you'll stop by our UUMH action table. Each week, we are offering an action that you can take to support our Unitarian Universalist values in the world. This might be by writing a thank you note, or signing a petition, making a donation, or calling a senator. Just one thing we can do a week to make us feel less hopeless and more powerful. Today, as we enjoy another rainy day, we are thinking of everyone around the globe who are being affected by severe weather events and natural disasters. So today's action is to make a donation to World Central Kitchen, who are currently hard at work feeding families in Myanmar, where the most powerful earthquake in over a century has destroyed towns and taken thousands of lives. World Central Kitchen is working with restaurant partners to serve thousands of meals every day and assembling 50,000 food kits with locally sourced ingredients for families who can cook for themselves. World Central Kitchen is also working here in the U.S. in states like Mississippi, Missouri, and Arkansas after the tornadoes, as well as Southern California after the wildfires, North Carolina after the hurricane. They are everywhere. So your donation today will help keep them going. There are QR codes and a website for online donations on the action table. If you're watching from home, just Google World Central Kitchen. There's also a bowl downstairs for cash donations. Finally, if you are here in person today, we hope you will join us downstairs after the worship service ends for coffee and conversation. Let's take a moment now to affirm our Meetinghouse covenant. You can find this printed on the purple laminated cards in your pews, but I'm going to say it line by line, so you can also just repeat each line back to me. Love is the spirit of this meetinghouse. This is our great covenant. To dwell together in peace. To seek the truth in love. And to help one another. Now, as we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you who are watching from home to light a candle wherever you are. In this way, we can feel connected even while we are apart. And this morning, I invite our worship hosts, Lee and Karen, to light our chalice for us.
Our chalice lighting this morning is by Pat Urib Lichty. We come from many places, along different paths, bringing different truths. We come with different histories and different realities, and yet we come together as one people, with faith that we can use our differences to heal ourselves and each other, to bring wholeness to a fractured world. We come seeking to find community, to find acceptance of who we are. In this place, we may find others who are much like us and others who are much different. May our lit chalice remind us that we are a people taught by different stories with many voices, but always one people working for a world where love creates justice and justice gives birth to peace.
Thank you. Won't you please join me now in singing our opening hymn, which is number 23, Bring Many Names. That's hymn number 23 in the gray hymnals, Bring Many Names. Please rise as you are able. You may be seated. Thank you, Wyatt. I now invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer. During the prayer, or at any time during the service, you are invited to light a silent candle at the table to the right of the pulpit, where there is a journal to record your thoughts and prayers. After the prayer, we will sing together again, Spirit of Life, which is hymn number 123 in the gray hymnals, but you can also find the words to this song printed on those same purple laminated cards in your pews. We'll sing first in English and then in Spanish. Spirit of Life, open our hearts this morning to the ancient stories, passed down through generations, preserved by our traditions. Help us to sift through these stories for truths that speak to us and can guide us forward. Open our hearts also to the wisdom in our own stories, lived out day by day and recorded in our memories. Help us to live fully our own stories and not to worry so much when they diverge from the stories and paths of others. Open our hearts to the choice we have about which stories we believe, about our world and about ourselves. Help us to let go of the stories others tell about us. Help us to push back when the stories society tells us don't match up to our own experience, our own knowledge, our own way of seeing the world. Open our hearts to the stories of others whose lives are different than our own. Help us to really listen. Help us to see the threads of connection that tie us to each other, that bind us across differences of country and culture and kin. Open our hearts to the stories of the future, our dreams and goals. Help us to take small steps toward them, looking back only for reference, not for regret. Open our hearts to the stories of our children and our grandchildren, good night stories and fairy tales, handwritten stories on lined paper. Help us to create a world in which each child can live out their own story more fully. Spirit of Life, help us to weave stories of peace, justice, and love, and help us to bring those stories to life. Amen. have a time for all ages planned, and if there are any young people that want to come up a little closer and sit in these first few pews, you don't have to, but you could be a little closer for the story time if you want to come up. You can bring your family if you want. Thinking about it? All right. Great, you can sit right here or right here. Thank you for coming to visit with me. I'm going to tell a story today. You want to sit on this side? Yeah, that's good. Can you get up there? That one's a tall one. Do you want a little help? Yeah, you need a boost. Good, good. The front pews are the tallest because they don't have the little lip. All right, so I want to tell you a story today. On one of the last days of his life, the great spiritual teacher Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, and crowds gathered to see him. They had heard about his teachings, and they were so happy that he was there. And it was kind of like they threw a parade for him. Now, if we wanted to throw a parade for someone, we might have streamers and confetti, and we could wave those little flags on sticks that they give out on the 4th of July, right? But this was thousands of years ago. This was before plastic was invented. And even paper was really rare and precious and expensive. So what could the ancient people use to create a welcoming parade for Jesus? Well, they looked around and they found palm branches from nearby trees, and they waved those around, and they also placed them on the road to create a kind of festive arrival scene. It was like a red carpet before red carpets were invented. Now, the sad part of the story is that Jesus didn't live for very long after that parade, and so the memory of that happy day became even more important to those who followed his teachings. And people still follow his teachings today. He taught things like love your neighbor and feed the poor, and don't be afraid to be friends with people who other people don't want to be friends with. Really good lessons. And churches today, hundreds and hundreds of years after that parade, still remember it by giving out palms on a Sunday called Palm Sunday. And I have some palms for you here today, thanks to Reverend Brian over at St. Mary's, who let me take some palms from their stash this morning. And if you want to, you could wave them around as you go back to your seats. And it can be like kind of like our own parade. Oops. There you go. Your hands are wet? Oh, your pants are wet. Maybe your mom can help you with that when you go back. You want to wave that back to your seat? That's a palm. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Now I invite Lee to give our reading for this morning.
Our reading this morning is Ready by Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, also known as the Velveteen Rabbi. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls wrapped in their cloaks upon their shoulders. That's Exodus 12:34. You'll need to travel light. Take what you can carry, a book, a poem, a battered tin cup, your child strapped to your chest, clutching your necklace in one hot, possessive fist. So the dough isn't ready, so your heart isn't ready. You haven't said goodbye to the places where you hid as a child, to the friends who aren't interested in the journey, to the graves you have tended. But if you wait until you feel fully ready, you may never take that leap at all. And infinity is calling you forth out of this birth canal and into the future's wide expanse. Learn to improvise flat cakes without yeast. Learn to read new alphabets. Wear God like a cloak and stride forth with confidence. You won't know where you're going, but you have the words of our sages, the songs of our mothers, the inspiration wrapped in your kneading bowl. Trust that what you carry will sustain you and take the first step out the door.
Thank you. Now is the time when we take a collection for the ongoing support of this meeting house and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection by our choir, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online through PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on our website, uumh.org. I invite some volunteer ushers forward. Are you guys singing or ushering today? All right. Well, we will have some other volunteers take up our collection on and off site. Your offerings will now be gratefully received.
Children are brilliant at singing, so I'm glad they're all
Thank you. Well, this morning we tell two very important stories from the Jewish and Christian traditions. And the first story you've already heard during the Time for All Ages, which is a story told on Palm Sunday of Jesus riding into Jerusalem, the story which precedes the stories of his betrayal and death leading up to Easter. Now, the other is the story of Passover, the exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt and their escape from slavery. And these stories are both found in the Bible, so let me say a few words about that book before we continue. Unitarian Universalism is rooted in Judaism and Christianity, but we don't rely only on those traditions for our spiritual teachings. Instead of reading scripture each week like they would do in a synagogue or a Christian church, we might read a poem or a Buddhist meditation or draw on something about brain science that we find really fascinating. And I love that about us. We see wisdom in all of the world's religious traditions and in nature and in each other's stories. But our broad spectrum of sources does mean that we can be a little thin on our biblical knowledge. This was certainly true for me because I grew up in a Unitarian Universalist church. So when I got to seminary, I had to familiarize myself with that book real quick. I had to start with the true basics. And in case any of you are in the same boat as me, let me share a few tidbits. The first part of the Bible, which is the Hebrew Bible, captures the stories of the Jewish people. It has chapters whose names you might recognize, like Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus. It shares 3,500 years of history through stories and genealogies and some poems called Psalms. It tells about people like Moses and Job and Ruth and Esther, and also about powerful kings and kingdoms. But these stories and family trees were not written down as they happened. For centuries, these histories were told orally through poetry recitations and storytelling. It wasn't until the 7th century BC that stories started to be written down. And they were written down by different groups at different times. And so how they tell the stories probably reflects not just the history that they are telling, but also what was going on in their time and in their communities. That affected which parts they emphasized and which parts they left out. And it wasn't until the 1st century BC that all these different tellings were compiled into one place, one book. And the same is true for the second part of the Bible, the New Testament. The stories about Jesus that form the basis of Christianity were first communicated orally. Now, there's one exception to this. Biblical scholars say that the earliest known writings that are captured in the New Testament are the letters written by the Apostle Paul. And he was giving advice to small pockets of Jesus followers who were starting churches and getting into squabbles and trying to figure out how best to organize themselves and get along with each other. Christianity was a brand new thing, so there was a lot of details to work out. And this was all before email. So he had to send letters, and these were written at least 50 years after Jesus' death. And the stories from the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were written down even later. So for about 100 years, these stories were told around fires and dinner tables to children at bedtime and at family parties, passed down from generation to generation before they were written down. So you can imagine that to make those Bible stories memorable enough to tell, not read, but tell aloud for hundreds of years, these stories were probably embellished a little bit, right? The details were made maybe a little more exciting for the telling. And sometimes, as Unitarian Universalists, we don't tell these stories because we're so good at thinking with our analytic minds, right? Focusing on one definition of truth, which is the definition that it means factual. But there's another definition of truth, which is the one I remind you of today, which is that something is true if it touches on the themes of the human experience. These are like family stories, but they're the human family story. So something that resonates with us because we have seen it or felt it in our lives somewhere before makes that thing true, makes sense to us. And there is truth in these stories. And while we may be divided on the factual side of their truth, I think maybe we can agree that stories that have been told for thousands of years, generation after generation, stories that have become sacred and central to so many people around the world, must speak some truth, in the second sense at least, truth about exile and resiliency, about weakness and temptation, about doubt, about grief and hope, about the miraculous nature of our experiences, and about the human spirit. And they are told by communities trying to keep the spirit of those things alive, although sometimes they get it wrong. Because we are often like those early bickering communities that Paul wrote to. We are just trying to figure out how these teachings are relevant to our lives today. And remember that these stories were originally told and written by oppressed communities, struggling communities, to keep hope alive. And they're often being told today by communities of power. And that changes things considerably. But this morning, I invite you to listen for those larger truths that you may find resonate with your own experiences, regardless of your theology or religious background or power. So the story of Passover. The telling I've chosen is based on the Haggadah created by Jim Sanders and Julie Ann Silberman Bunn. And a Haggadah is a book used at a Passover Seder designed to take participants in the Seder through the story of the Jewish people as it's told in that biblical book of Exodus, which is found in the Hebrew Bible, which is known as the Torah. And that word Haggadah literally means telling. If you've been to a Passover Seder, you know that the story is told over the course of a long meal that everyone participates in the telling. In the story of Exodus, we learn that long ago, the Jewish people were made slaves of a harsh ruler named Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh forced the Jews to do back-breaking labor, making bricks and building buildings that would bring him glory. Pharaoh was also paranoid, and he was deeply afraid that someday one of the Jewish boys would grow up to be king of the land, and so he ordered that all young Jewish boys be killed, and many were. But one baby named Moses was saved by the Pharaoh's daughter, and she raised him like he was her own son. One day, Moses saw a soldier hurting a slave, and while trying to help the slave, he killed the soldier. And Moses knew that the Pharaoh would be very angry with him, so he ran away, and he became a shepherd in a faraway land. One day, as he was wandering with his sheep, Moses saw something strange. A small bush was on fire and burning brightly. And as he got closer to it, he realized the bush was speaking to him. Now, this is my own note here, but have you ever felt like you've heard a voice guiding you? Like maybe it's your conscience, or maybe it's advice that an ancestor or an elder would have given you. I just wonder if you've ever felt guided by a voice. Moses believed it was the voice of God telling him to go back to Egypt and free the Jewish people from slavery. And Moses followed the directions he heard, and he returned to Egypt, where he found that the old Pharaoh had died and a new Pharaoh had come to power. And Moses asked the new Pharaoh to let the Jewish people go, but he would not. And Moses warned that bad things would happen to the people of Egypt if the Pharaoh did not free the Jewish people. But still the Pharaoh would not listen, and horrible things began to happen. 10 plagues came, one after another. Blood, frogs, lice, wild beasts, cattle disease, boils, hail, locusts, and darkness. And after each, Moses asked for the Jews to be freed, and after each, the Pharaoh refused. And here's where the story gets kind of gruesome. The final plague was the killing of the firstborn children. To save their own children from this plague, the Jews were told to put the blood of a lamb over their door. This way, the angel of death would know which homes to pass over, and that's where we get that name. And so it's told that the firstborn of all the Egyptians were killed, including the Pharaoh's son. And after this, the Pharaoh finally let the Jewish people leave Egypt. But he sent his army to follow them. And he told his army to trap them against the sea and kill them. But when the Jews were at the water's edge and the army was close behind, the water miraculously parted, and the Jews were able to cross. And when the army tried to follow, the waters quickly flowed back, and then men were all swept away by the water. While the destruction of the Egyptian army gave the Jewish people their freedom, it did not solve all their problems. For now they were lost in the desert, on a journey with no known destination. And the desert held hardships of its own. After a long time of wandering, the known harshness of slavery in Egypt seemed better than the unknown troubles that the desert was putting in front of them. In Egypt, they knew there would be food and a roof over their heads, but in the desert, they didn't know what any day would hold for them. So some people turned against Moses as they wandered for 40 years in the desert. Well, 40 years later, the children of those who had left slavery behind in Egypt entered into a new land and began a new life as a community. So Passover is a joyous holiday, but it is also one that recognizes great sacrifice. The Jews gained their freedom, but many Egyptians lost their lives. And just like the people who originally wrote these stories down were informed by what is happening in their time, modern Passover celebrations are also shaped by awareness of current sorrow and oppression in all parts of the world. And so Passover serves as a reminder that we too have to work for the freedom of all, to live a life of joy. A part of the Seder script is the 4 questions, and they are read by the youngest child. The child asks, "On all other nights, we eat either leavened or unleavened bread. Why on this night do we eat only unleavened bread?" And an adult answers, "When the Jewish people fled from Egypt, they were in a great hurry and did not have time to allow their bread dough to rise. The sun baked their bread with its heat, and since the dough didn't rise, it was flat. They called this flat bread matzah. To remember this night, tonight we eat only matzah." A child asks, "On all other nights we eat many kinds of herbs. Why on this night do we eat only bitter herbs?" And an adult answers, "The Jewish people lived bitter lives in Egypt. We eat the bitter herbs to remind us of their suffering and the suffering many people still face." Now, on a side note, for those of us who did not grow up Jewish, there is a learning curve to a Seder. For instance, at my very first Passover Seder in my early 20s, I had no idea what was meant by bitter herbs, and I did not recognize the ingredients of the little beet spread on my plate next to the yummy apple walnut salad. And when we were told to make a sandwich using the matzah, the haroset, and maror, I did so with a big blob of the spread called maror. And as I swallowed it, my eyes began to water and my nose burned fiercely, and I thought I might be dying. But I didn't want to call attention to myself and my impending death, so I just kept quiet with the burning. But as soon as I could breathe again, I whispered to my neighbor, "What is this?" And that is when I learned about horseradish. But back to the questions. A child asks, on all other nights we do not dip one food in another. Why on this night do we dip the parsley in salt water and the bitter herbs in haroset? An adult answers, we dip parsley in salt water to remind us that even in the best of times, there may be sorrow. We dip the bitter herbs in the haroset to remind us that even the most bitter experiences in life can be sweetened with hope and freedom. So there you have it, two important stories in the Jewish and Christian traditions and an overview of their symbols. There are truths in these stories. We may not consider ourselves a chosen people. We may not be waiting expectantly for a savior, but there are truths in these stories. They are the truths of wanting things to change, being pretty desperate for a better world, desperate for safety and liberation and justice and peace for all people, not just the rich, not just the rulers, looking for miracles and looking for leaders to guide us there, looking for hope, looking for a better future that resembles more the kingdom of heaven than anything we have now. The story of Exodus is sometimes hard to hear. It's violent, but there is truth in that. We have our own stories of Exodus, and they are not easy either. Some of our stories include fleeing from domestic violence. Some of our stories include escaping addiction. Some of our stories include leaving families that were not kind to us. These are hard stories, but they are hopeful stories too. And the story of Palm Sunday can also be hard to hear. It's a story of a triumphal entrance, but it's hard to hear because we know what comes next. Jesus is betrayed, and he is killed by the state. But this, too, is a story of truth. We know that people who stand up for justice are putting themselves in danger. We've seen it ourselves. We've seen John F. Kennedy killed in Dallas, Martin Luther King Jr. killed in Memphis, Bobby Kennedy killed in Los Angeles, Malcolm X killed in New York, Medgar Evers killed in Jackson, Mississippi. We just told the story the other day of Viola Luiso and James Reeb killed in Selma, Alabama, Harvey Milk killed in San Francisco. We mourn these lives, but we also celebrate their triumphant entrances, their public stances for equality. And we look for other future leaders that we can welcome and support and follow, maybe not with palms, but publicly in the face of the powers that be. So we continue to tell these ancient stories. And as Unitarian Universalists, we continue to tell other stories of communities standing up for change, for justice. And here's another truth. These stories are not over. These stories are unending. Chapters are being added to these stories each time people come together to work towards some greater good. Each time people come together to overcome adversity. Each time people journey toward a better future, guided by an abiding hope. So here's to life, l'chaim, may it be so, amen, and blessed be. Let's sing one more time of that journey. Please join me in singing number 1018, Come and Go With Me, and that is in the Teal hymnals. Number 1018, Come and Go With Me. Please rise as you are able. Singing. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. With me to that land, come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Thank you. You may be seated.
It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a topic of sharing at coffee hour today or with friends during the week. If you'd like to delve deeper into this topic, we invite you to our midweek Zoom coffee hour on Tuesday at 5 p.m. If you are not on our email folk list and need that link, please let Kenneth in the office know. Our question this week is, can you think of a Bible story that feels true to you, even if it might not be factually true? Can you think of a Bible story that feels true to you, even if it might not be factually true?
I'll end with these closing words. So your heart isn't ready, but if you wait until you feel fully ready, you may never take the leap at all into infinity. Infinity is calling you forth into the future's wide expanse. You won't know where you're going, but you have the words of our sages, the songs of our mothers, the inspiration wrapped in your kneading bowl. Trust that what you carry will sustain you, and take the first step out the door. Go in peace.